Hey, what's up, you guys? My name is Grace Lauren Taylor, and you are listening to episode 37 of the Trauma Dump Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Here at the Trauma Dump Podcast, we seek to answer the question, what is mental health? How do I take care of my own, and how do I support others? This week, we will be discussing the topic of coping with mental illness with our very special guest of the week, Carleigh. Please go check out Carleigh over on TikTok. Her TikTok is at brain.nerd. Coping with mental illness is one of the most challenging aspects of life. If you or someone that you know is struggling or is in a crisis, help is always available. Please call or text 988. That is 988, the Crisis Lifeline. They are open 24/7. They are open, they have licensed people on there, and they have trained care counselors and crisis counselors on there. They're available anytime, day or night. If you need help, please contact them, or you can text the number 741-741 to speak with a trained crisis counselor. We have also a lot of different links in the description for coping strategies. Though you may feel alone when you're going through something, you don't have to be. Struggling with your mental health, you don't have to do it alone. Let's do it together. Okay, let's struggle together. Let's build each other up. All right, I'm here for you. I am here for you. So if you want to contact me, you can message me in our Discord server, DM me if you want to, or message me over there. I will respond. I'll get to it. I have just started teaching a lot. I have so many more clients. I'm so excited. I teach acting and voice lessons. If you ever want some acting or voice lessons, I can teach you. It's what I have degrees in. I've got 2 degrees over there. If you want some lessons, reach out. Or if you need someone to talk to, reach out. I will make myself available for you. I don't know if you're watching us on YouTube, but if you guys are, if you're not just listening to us, over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you can see that we're in a new room. Oh my goodness, we have a new studio. Well, not really a studio. This is my office in our new home, our new house. We have a house now. We did it. We did it. Yeah. Welcome. This is going to change, over time. We're going to develop new stuff. I'm going to add more padding to the walls because it's pretty echoey in here. It's a really big room comparatively to the room we used to do the podcast in. But yeah, I'm excited. Onwards and upwards for this podcast, and we're in episode 37. So guys, we did it. Oh my God. I'm so beyond grateful for you guys listening, watching, being present, sharing your input, sharing your stories. And speaking of sharing stories, our guest of the week is Carleigh. Go check her out on TikTok. It's brain.nerd. And remember, if you'd like to share on the show, please message us in our Discord in the podcast participants channel, and we will match you to the right episode. And just a quick disclaimer before we start, I am not a licensed health professional, though Carleigh is a PhD student. Hey! This podcast only seeks to create community and further understanding of these topics that are so often overlooked and extremely misunderstood. If you or a loved one are in need of medical professional help, we have so many different resources in our description. The topics discussed here are for a mature audience, so viewer discretion is always advised. So, remember, if you're enjoying this episode, what would help us out so much over here on the Trauma Dump Podcast is if you share it with your friends. And if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the post notification bell so you can get a notification anytime we post. And please, again, I'm going to reiterate, please share it with your friends. It really helps us out a lot, and it helps the channel grow, and it helps everybody else become more trauma informed. All right, let's get into this episode. So, most people believe that mental health conditions are rare and they happen to somebody else. Everybody else Oh, that person over there, they're having a mental health problem. But in fact, mental health conditions are very common and are very widespread. An estimated 44 million Americans suffer from some form of mental disorder within a given year. Most families are not prepared to cope with learning that their loved one is suffering from a mental illness. It can be physically and emotionally draining, and it can make us feel vulnerable to the opinions and judgment of others. If you think, or if someone that you know is having a mental or emotional problem, it is important to remember that there is hope and that there is help out there and that there are resources out there to get that person or yourself some attention, some help, because you are worth the effort it takes to get better, and you are worth the effort it takes to overcome whatever you're going through. So coping, that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode. And coping can be described as an attempt to master, tolerate, or reduce internal/external stressors that an individual perceives as exceeding existing resources. So coping essentially is, I'm going through a lot and I don't know how to deal with it. So this episode, we're going to provide some coping strategies that we know of that have worked for us, and maybe even some that haven't worked for us. So just because something doesn't work for me doesn't mean it won't work for you. And just because something works for me doesn't mean it will work for you. It's a matter of figuring it out, right? Harnessing coping strategies which support good mental health may help reduce individuals needing more specialist mental health services, which are not available all the time and they're not available everywhere. However, evidence is really limited on the relationship between coping and mental health among conflict-afflicted populations in low and middle income settings. And I'm going to cite my sources in the description. I know a lot of people are like, well, you're not a mental health professional, so what do you know? I do a lot of research. Also, all of our episodes are peer reviewed by a licensed practitioner, which I'm not going to be sharing who they are for their own safety, but I do a lot of research and I make sure that my sources are accurate and adequate. There's also a really big difference between how men cope and how women cope. And I just want to give that disclaimer out there because I am not a man and my guest is also not a man. So for those men out there that have some coping strategies that work for you, please leave those in the comments down below on our YouTube or message us in our Discord server and let us know what coping strategies have worked for you. And the same goes for you girls, the girlies. What strategies have worked for you? They, thems. What strategies have worked for you? Let's start this discussion and start our healing journey. Now, let's get into this episode. Hello, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you?
I am surviving. I am figuring it out. For those of you guys watching on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I'm sorry that I'm really echoey today, but I have a giant room that has not been soundproofed yet because I just moved in 2 days ago. So give me some grace, guys. Give me my name. Give me some grace. But yeah, we're out here. So it's really good to meet you, Carleigh.
Mhm.
Beautiful, because your name is spelled Carleigh.
Yeah, it was really hard to understand when I was learning the alphabet that I have a bunch of silent letters in my name.
Yeah, yeah. Dude,
Or
I'm dyslexic. I would like lose my mind.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Definite learning curve just on the first name for sure.
Yeah. So introduce yourself to us. Who are you?
Yeah. Oh gosh, great question. Yeah, so like you said, I'm Carleigh. I am at brain.nerd on TikTok. And then I have my just like personal Instagram, Carleigh Joe. I tried to make an Instagram for Brain Nerd, but life gets in the way. But that's where you can find me. And I'm currently a second year PhD student. And I have my master's in clinical psychopharmacology, and I'm getting my PhD in pharmacology. So I love talking about psychiatric medications. That's my favorite thing to talk about, and that's what you'll find a lot of content about on my TikTok because I also take psychiatric medications. I'm very open about it, very supportive of that. And so I talk a lot about that. If you want to learn more about that, you should check my videos out. Um, and yeah,
And
that's
go
my
support her for being on this episode. I'm so excited. I watch a lot, and I mean a lot of your TikToks because before I like reach out to people, I kind of vet their stuff because dude, there's so many people on the internet that are like, "Oh, I support mental health," and then I'll find like one video that they have done and I'm like, "Hmm, that's a little bit of misinformation that you're spreading here. Maybe I shouldn't reach out to this one." So I watched like probably 100 different videos of yours, and it might have looked like I was stalking you because I was like, oh my God, wait, hold up. I like Carleigh. Hold up. Hold up. So thank you so much for being on. I really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's so exciting.
Yeah, so today we're talking about coping with mental illness. Ooh, ooh. And
Hmm.
before we start off this episode, a quick little disclaimer. I'm not a licensed health professional by any means. She is going to be a licensed health professional. She's going to be. So those of you guys watching out there, um, please take whatever information that we have as just friends talking to you about things that we have learned. And we also have a lot of research in the description if you want to check out that research that I have done. But in no way is this therapy. If you guys need therapy, go get therapy. I also have a lot of links in the description for you to have 2 free weeks of BetterHelp. I am not sponsored, but it's a resource. And I have another link where you can try and find a therapist in your general area. So, before we get into this episode, what are your pronouns?
She, her.
Awesome. Are you
And I,
comfortable? Yeah,
oh, sorry, I was gonna say, I was listening to your podcast, so you prefer they, them?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. I did my homework. I did some homework.
Thank you for listening. Oh, I really appreciate it.
Of
Um,
course.
like it takes me back a little bit every time someone asks me back like what my pronouns are because I'm like, you care?
Of course we care. Of course.
Thank you. Are you comfortable with discussing your personal experiences?
Yes.
Okay, good deal. But to make sure I'm not crossing any of your boundaries and respecting your experiences, please feel free to interrupt me at any time. If you feel uncomfortable or triggered, or you're like, girl, that's TMI. We ain't gonna discuss that. We can also take a break at any time. And if you don't feel like answering a question, just tell me to skip it. I promise I won't get offended because my priority is to make sure that you feel safe at all times.
Awesome. I feel safe already.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. I feel safe too. So today we're talking about different coping strategies for mental illness. But we first need to define what mental illness is. So mental illnesses are brain-based conditions that affect thinking, emotions, and behaviors. We all get ill from time to time, right? You get ill. It's the human condition. We do not have perfect bodies, and our bodies are not able to withstand and be immune to everything. And just like how you can get physically ill from, say, a paper cut or someone coughing in your face, you can also get mentally ill from someone speaking horribly to you or going through a really difficult experience. For people who have mental illnesses, their brains have changed in a way in which they are unable to think, feel, or act in ways that they want to. For some, this means that experiencing extreme and unexpected changes in mood, like feeling more sad or worried than normal. And for others, it means not being able to think clearly, not being able to communicate with someone who is talking to them or having bizarre thoughts to help explain the weird ways that they're feeling. Like, for instance, I have been diagnosed with a lot of different mental illnesses, and a lot of them have been misdiagnoses. Let's just be honest right here. Like, dude, the American healthcare system is not the best. It is getting better, though. And when I was, let's say, middle school, fifth grade, well, like right before middle school, I started experiencing really severe panic attacks. And what was happening was eventually I would get, diagnosed with PTSD from my mother because my mother was abusing me at home. But, the
Mm.
doctors, she was a covert narcissist. The doctors were never going to be able to tell until I escaped, that I was being pretty severely abused, but I would have pretty severe panic attacks. And so they diagnosed me with panic disorder, anxiety. Then I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder, all this stuff. And it wasn't until I kind of escaped that living situation and went to college, I went to therapy and had like an in-depth like psychoanalysis done on
Mhm.
me that they were like, okay, girl, you are suffering from complex PTSD from the abuse that you faced from your mother. Let's find some strategies to help you get through this and find a way for you to change your thinking patterns because the way that I interpreted the world, no. Dude, I thought everyone was out to get me.
Mhm.
I really did. I still to this day, it's very hard for me to trust people. But I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress, but it was very hard for me to trust people, especially in college where I'm meeting all these new people, but I so desperately wanted to be everyone's friend, but I didn't trust them to be my friend, if that makes sense. Like I wanted to do
Of
everything for
course.
everyone, but like if I were to ask for help, that would be more painful than putting my hand like over a fire. Like mentally, I was like, I can't ask for help because that fear of rejection was just so strong. Do you relate to
Sure.
this?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't know if this is along the lines of what you're hitting at, but definitely being a people pleaser, like beyond, has always been an issue for me. And I think especially, in school, I would put my performance in school or work over my own health because if I disappointed my professor or if I disappointed my boss, for example. Like it was just like you said, like it was like almost physically painful. Um, and so I definitely can relate to that. And it is a trauma response, not necessarily in my case, but when I heard you talking about like in one of your previous podcasts too, I heard you talking about the trauma with your mom, and it makes me wonder too. And I think you talked about how you were a caretaker for your mother. And so it's just, your body is told you in order to not be hurt, this is the role I have to fill. And so, the trauma in your body is kind of trying to keep you safe, but then it can also put you in sticky situations because people pleasing, people take advantage of that. I feel like especially narcissists can pick out the people pleasers very, very easily, and they know they can smell us when we walk into a room and take advantage of that, and that can put us in some tough situations. So, yeah, I definitely can relate to that.
Like what you were saying, um, people pleasing is really a, attachment tactic that we develop as, really young children because it's for survival. We have to appease to survive. And it's really frustrating because it doesn't make sense mentally. when we think of like mental illness, it's really our brain trying to rewire itself to fit the situation that's at hand. And it's frustrating. Like, say, it's the same thing as like we're developing calluses from, our, like if you were hammering something over and over and over and over. My fiance is a plumber, he's a tradesman. He has so many calluses all over his hands. And I was looking at his hands one time. I was like, your hands have gone through a lot of trauma. And he was like, well, my hands are really strong because of it. And that made me really think of like, his hands had to adapt to, the change of constantly moving, grabbing, gripping, pulling, pushing. And it changed his physicality. And also trauma can manifest physically as well, because I started developing, with the panic attacks, I started developing seizures, and
Mm-hmm.
um, it also changes your body chemistry as well. When I was younger, my mother would randomly stop buying us food, like entirely. I would not go to the store. Um, we would legitimately starve. And then she would go on these diets, and I was forced to go on them with her as a young child with a developing body to
Wow.
now. When I was 8 years old, I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism, which is crazy. Like the amount of starvation that she put me through as a child to start to develop hypothyroidism,
Yeah.
insane. And I still struggle with it a lot. I don't eat very much, like at all. And I do exercise every day. I'm a heavier set human being, and I'm fine with that. Genuinely, I have started to love and embrace my body. But there's a difference between, just mindlessly loving something and then recognizing, okay, this is why my body looks a certain way, because it was forced under, starvation for so long that my body's like, okay, hold up. We don't know if we're going to starve again. Let's hold
Yeah.
on to this squishy. Let's hold on.
Yeah.
And it takes so much longer to lose that type of fat because your body is like fighting against you, being like, no, I need it. And it's the same thing with, mental health problems. There's over 200 classified forms of mental illness. Some are more common disorders like depression, bipolar disorder, dementia, schizophrenia, and anxiety disorders. And symptoms may include changes in mood, personality, personal habits, and or social withdrawal. Mental health problems can be related to excessive stress due to a particular situation or series of events. As with cancer, diabetes, and heart disease, mental illnesses are often physical as well as emotional and psychological. And mental illnesses may be caused by a reaction to environmental stress, genetic factors, biochemical imbalances, or a combination of these. But with proper care and treatment, many individuals learn to cope or recover from mental illness or an emotional disorder. So, my first like real question to you would be, do you personally struggle with mental health issues?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I don't even necessarily know what it is. Like, and I think that's a really important thing to bring up. I think for a lot of people, it's important to have a label. And for me, it isn't, but kind of, I almost oscillate between depression and anxiety. But then we don't know if my depression causes me to be anxious or my anxiety causes me to be depressed. Kind of, they're very symbiotic, the two of them. And it manifest, when you're talking about the physical manifestations, I always joke like I am the poster child for anxiety, like physical symptoms. Like I go get massages every month. Like I get a massage a month, and like they're always like, "Do you have TMJ?" And I'm like, "Probably." Like, "Do you clench your jaw?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm stressed all the time. And then I went to the OBGYN, and they were trying to do an abdominal ultrasound because I have some uterus stuff going on. And they were like, "Do you have IBS?" I was like, "Probably." Like I'm like I have like, all the kind of physical conditions that are associated with chronic anxiety, they show up, you know. Um, so, but yeah, I don't necessarily know if I could specifically say I have depression, I have anxiety. I think I have both, but I don't know if there's one that is like the major one. And then there's also like I listened to your episode about misdiagnoses, and they I have symptoms of OCD, but I wouldn't necessarily, I guess, say I have OCD per se. Like I pick my skin, which I also talk a lot about on my TikTok, which is a body focused repetitive behavior associated with OCD, but it's also an anxiety kind of self-soothing thing. Intrusive thoughts are a symptom of OCD, but it's also kind of intermingled with anxiety. And I think, when you talked about the 200 different diagnoses, like I really think they're more connected than we like to think as mental health practitioners, like it's, I don't know. I'm getting on a bit of a tangent, but yeah, I definitely definitely have mental health issues. I take medications for them, but I couldn't really say what specific one I have or ones I, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it does make so much sense because, the way that I like to think about it, and I've had a therapist on the podcast several times. Shout out Erin O'Brien. Erin is amazing. Guys, go check her out. It's DBT Center of Media on Instagram. But she talks about how mental health issues are on a spectrum.
Hmm.
And it's more like we have, those Venn diagrams. That is really what mental illness is. You'll have like a little section of this, a little section of this, a little section of this, little section of this.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
you know, the she says people try to bring logic into mental illness, and usually it isn't that like logical. And
Yeah.
with stuff like medicine, they're wanting precise measurements of this and this, and for you to have this diagnosis you have to have at least these five symptoms and whatever. And she's like, it's not focused on the healing of the individual. It's focused on
Yes.
recognizing the problem and then finding a solution to the problem rather than finding helpful healing, you know, trying to get these people to a different place in their lives. Rather, it's managing the problem instead of, rectifying the issue, going to the source and providing support and help for it. And with mental illness, everybody is unique. We are all
Yeah.
so very unique. Our experiences are so very unique, but also we aren't unique because we all go through life, and life is like a pattern, right? There's so many different interlays of thread into each and every person's life. And I don't know if you've ever seen, it's a very amazing movie. It's about David and the coat of many colors. There's like a song from it. So a little background on me. I have 2 degrees in theater and minors in
Wow.
music. And music is very healing for me. It's something how I can cope. And there's one of the songs is it's like it's through heaven's eyes.
Oh my gosh, yes, I've heard of that. I
Yes.
I am a musical theater fangirl. Could never bust into it, but I'm always like I have a Broadway Babe playlist on my Apple Music that I just like jam to in my office. And then I recently found out someone in my PhD cohort also enjoys musicals. And so we were just like doing our work, but then like have like musicals blasting. I was like, oh my God, people think we're losing our minds, but
No,
yeah,
music is
it's
so
great.
very healing. It
It
really
is.
is.
It is. It
But
is.
the line that I was thinking of is a single thread in a tapestry, though its color brightly shines, can never see its purpose in the pattern of the grand design. And when I visualize my own mental illness, and I also love, beadwork, stuff like that. I make bracelets. Those are bracelets made by me, Grace. If you guys want one, you can have one. But I also make stuff like this.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Thank you. And so when I'm looking at my life and the different points in my life, I like to add, like, okay, this is how I'm feeling. This is a color. And then I'll write it down in my diary. I'll write with a pen of that color to really express how I'm feeling.
Wow.
And looking back through all of it, I can just look at the color of the pen. I don't even have to read the contents. And I know, okay, on that day, girl wasn't feeling it. They weren't feeling it. They were dying inside. Okay. And then I'll look through it and it helps me, recognize, okay, dude, February last year, rough month. But May last year, June last year, I was doing a lot better. And somehow, some way, we're talking about coping, that really helps me cope. Because if we're stuck in the feeling of everything is shit, everything is horrible, I'm not getting anywhere. And then for me, if I journal and I look back on like what I've gone through, I'm like, dude, I already overcame that. That already went by. I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was the end of the world. Let's be real. I was living in my car. I thought that was the end of the world. I thought I could never go anywhere else. I thought that my life was basically over. And now I just moved into, a big duplex with my fiance. And I never would have thought if I stayed stuck in that mindset of everything is shit, everything is shit, everything is shit. That makes any sense. But
Yeah.
for those of you that want like a little musical inspiration, I'm also going to be putting a playlist of all the songs that I'm going to be mentioning in this episode. Through Heaven's Eyes is one of them. Check it out. Um, when did you realize that you needed help with your mental health?
Oh, my entire life. Yeah. No, but I think I think my most kind of recent struggle was this or time. I have a little bit of time blindness. I apologize. So it was the first year of my PhD, and it was in the fall, and there was some family stuff going on back home. I live in DC now, but I'm from a suburb of Chicago. And so I was far away, farthest I've ever been away from home. And I was the first year of the PhD program I'm in is very, very coursework heavy. And I graduated with in undergrad in 2017. And then my master's was just paper. So I hadn't sat for an exam in a long time. And I was in this human physiology course that kicked my behind to the moon and back. And this family stuff was going on. I delayed the exam and then I took it and I got the lowest grade in the class. And I like thought I was going to throw up because, and I think this is kind of goes back with we were originally talking about the people pleasing thing. Like I was like, I lost sight of who I was as a person. I was like, no, I'm a bad person. Like I am the worst. And literally, so they gave us kind of the answers back on the exam so we could go through it. I was sitting in the back of the class. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but I am a public crier. So I thought I was pretty like sly about it. So I'm like sitting in the back of this like lecture hall and I'm straight up just like crying, but thinking I'm being like stealth about it. But like multiple people came up to me like, it's okay, it gets better, it gets better. I was like, but then what happened? So all the students left, and my professor came up to me and he was like, because so when you're in classes, you're also expected to work in the lab. So I'm doing lab work, I'm doing experiments, I'm in these classes. And yeah, he was like, you come first. Your mental health comes first. He goes, sleep, mental health, physical health, then coursework, then lab. Like but for me, it was like, I have to pass these classes. I wasn't taking care of myself at all. But anyways, because of this exam, I didn't listen to my teacher's advice, and I developed severe test anxiety. And I was already on a lot of psychiatric medication for depression, but then I thought that was hindering me. So even with a master's in psychopharmacology, I said, I'm just going to stop taking them because I don't need medication. It's making me stupid, which is not true. And I'm embarrassed that I even thought that. So I went off all my meds, and then, developed severe test anxiety. My resting heart rate was 135 before an exam. And then, because I was still performing poorly in classes, like it was just like a hot mess. Sorry, I swear. And then,
Swear all you want.
Okay, I was a hot ass mess, dude. And so I ended up finally being like, okay, I need to listen to this professor. Like, I am not okay. I'm waking up like I would wake up in the middle of the night, just from like feeling like something bad was going to happen. Like, it was just like this, like I was telling my fiance, I was like, I just feel like, when you're about to, for at least me who has stage fright, you probably don't have as much stage fright because you do theater, but it's like before you give a talk or before you go on stage and you just feel like this like hit sinking feeling in your stomach, like something bad is gonna happen. So, like that's how I felt. I was like all day, every day, and there's no release. And then I reminded myself there are medications that can help you as well as therapy. So I ended up getting back on Zoloft, which for me is chef's kiss. And I got back into therapy, and then they gave me propranolol, which is like helps. The way I describe it is it basically stops your fight or flight response. So I would take that before exams. I ended up doing the best I'd ever done in school and crushed my written exam, my written qualified. So very long story, but yeah, it's just like and we talk about mental health recovery isn't linear. And I think, like I was already on psych meds. I'd gone off of them. I thought I was stable, and I was unstable, and I come back stable. And it's just so important to reach out for help. But that being said, even me who has a bachelor's in psychology and a master's and all these things, like I made poor personal decisions because I like didn't have the insight, which is a symptom of mental illness, right? This lack of insight to really realize that like something is seriously wrong. So I would also recommend that if your peers start being like, you don't seem like yourself, you lost your sparkle, like I lost a lot of weight really fast, and not on like thank God I've not ever struggled with eating disorders, but stress for me manifests in like not eating. I just have no like I will be hungry, I'll have like a bite of a sandwich, and I'm like, I'm gonna throw up if I have another piece. But it's because my sympathetic nervous system, my fight or flight response is like, yeah, like be ready to fight at any time because there could be something really bad happening. So I like, and people are like, you lost a lot of weight, like what's going on? You look sick, but I was like, no, I'm fine. I just have to study harder, and that wasn't the case. I had to take care of myself, get my meds right, get back into therapy to realize that I am more than my academic performance and that a bad grade on a test does not mean that I am a bad person. It means that maybe there's other stuff going on. And then I was able to move forward and do really, really well. And I'm still doing really, really well in the program. So that's my little soapbox of just like, if you don't notice it in yourself, but if your friends start pointing out things, listen to them, because you might not you might think it's something, but often the people that are around you the most will kind of sometimes recognize it first that there's something off, you know?
And girl, I relate so hard. And you're like, oh, you were in theater, you don't know stage fright. Girl, I call it my nervous sided energy because before every show, there was something in me, um, whether it be performance anxiety, whatever, is my dad and mom were always in the front row with my grandparents, and they
Mhm.
were always counting on me to do better than everybody else on stage. And they told me that as a young child that I had to do better than everybody else on that stage.
Wow.
And that messed me up. And that's also part of the reason why I don't do theater anymore, because I have that complex and it is not
Mhm.
healthy. It is not healthy. It is
No.
not about me. No matter if I'm a lead or whatever, it's about the work, it's about the show. And so I had to be like, I need to take a break from performing because, baby girl, this ain't helping my
Mm-mm.
mental health.
Mm-mm.
When you were talking about, friendships, if friends say, hey, what's going on? I noticed that your behavior is different and you got to listen to them, essentially, is what you were letting us know. I feel that 100%. Little trauma dump here on the Trauma Dump podcast. I have a lot of friends, and I had a friend that I thought was really close to me, and I made her my maid of honor. And I have, my other bridesmaids and Catlin, who's been on the podcast twice. Shout out to Claude Beauty. She's also a bridesmaid. And Kat is amazing, amazing, amazing. And she did everything in her power. She's already bought her bridesmaid dress, and our wedding isn't until April 20th, 2025. So it's not even until next year. She's already bought her bridesmaid dress. She's already like helping me plan shit. And my maid of honor was dodging all of, the bridesmaids group texts, wouldn't answer anything. I kept calling her, texting her, trying to hang out with her, personally, just to fucking hang out. And Kat was like, babe, maybe she's going through something. Give her grace, give her time. 2 months go by. I'm like, Kat, girl, I don't know what to do. I need to talk to her because I'm now feeling, bad about myself because, dude, I'm being avoided.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
she's supposed to be my maid of honor and I'm being straight up avoided. And we're in the process of moving. And, I could really use her help with moving all the stuff. Her boyfriend said he was going to help. He's been avoiding me too. He's not answering any of our calls. He's not answering my fiance's calls. Like,
Mm.
he's supposed to officiate our wedding too. They
Oh,
both have
wow.
very big, roles in our wedding. And they're not responding to
Mm.
even, it was weird. It was really weird. And so they're still not responding. So I was talking to Kat about this. I was like, um, I have a personal conviction and I feel like she shouldn't be my maid of honor because I don't deserve to be treated this way. And Kat was like, yeah, you got to do what you got to do. Talk to her, try to talk to her, still dodging all of my calls. And essentially, eventually we had a phone conversation for about, let's say, an hour of her saying that she's going through a lot. She's going through a lot of stuff. And I feel very bad, but she never let me know what she was going through. She completely avoided me, didn't want to talk to me, didn't want to interact with me. And she stopped taking her medication. And so she was like, I feel just really great without my medication. But, when times are stressful, it's really hard. And I thought to myself, um, why would you stop your medication cold turkey without even going to your doctor, without even talking about maybe lowering your dosage, without even hiring your dosage, something other than stopping your medication cold turkey? And she was like, well, I thought really long and hard about it. And I thought this was the best thing for me to do. And I was like, well, with peace and love, I don't agree. Peace and
Yeah.
love, I don't agree with you. I really don't. And she took that as an insult and she's just not talking to me anymore.
Mm. That's
And
so hard. Ugh.
and I wasn't confrontational about it. I said that, we don't have to agree on everything. We're friends. Friends don't have to agree on everything. We're allowed to have differing opinions. And I was like, I can't sympathize with you suddenly stopping your medication and then experiencing all these things because you stopped taking your medication. Like, baby girl, the solution is starting to take your medication again, but you don't want to be wrong. And so, hi, Mochi. She has a cone because she has mites. Come here. Demotrin. This is Mochi Wong. Mochi, will you say hello to the guests?
That's sweet.
She's a good little baby, but
Very good. So
she she has to wear the cone of shame, because
yes.
it's so shameful that you got an eye boo boo. It's so big. Were you able to scratch it? It looks like it. It
She's
looks
like,
like
I
you.
want a kiss.
I'm not gonna kiss you, but I love you. But I'm not gonna make out with you. Thank you. Bye. Bye. She's
So
so big.
sweet.
She is very sweet. But I bring this all back to, address if your friends are noticing something, you should listen. You should at least take what they're saying into account. And what I like to say to my friends, even if I don't agree with what they're saying, I'll say, I'll take it under advisement. That's what I say. And if I don't take, your opinion, your suggestion, just know that I still love you and I still respect whatever you have to say. Please don't take this as me not wanting your advice or not wanting your opinion. Please continue to give it to me. But just because I don't take it doesn't mean that I don't want to hear it. But some other people really don't want to hear it. And, you know, my friend admitted that she was avoiding me because she didn't want to hear what I had to say, and she didn't care. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing she's off the island. She's not a friend anymore.
Yes. And it's so interesting because I've been the friend, and I've I've been both friends. So, and what I will say, and this is not saying that, okay, how do I say this? Like, not being friends anymore on your end is 1000% valid. It doesn't mean that you're breaking up your friendship because of her mental illness. Like, that's you are in charge of your. I don't know if you ever watched the show House MD. It's one of my favorite shows. But there's this one day, one room episode that is my favorite episode of all time. And it's like you're like your life is a series of rooms, is what it says. And like you hopefully can be in control of like who you keep in your room. Who do you want in your room? And you maybe wanting that friend outside of your room for now. You can always invite them back into your room later, but you are in every right and every control to kick that person out of your room. Um, and on her side, like, because this is our symptoms of our mental health often push people away, but that doesn't mean that the you don't have oh, shoot, I'm sorry, I'm losing my words, but it's like because we're mental health advocates, right? So I'm not trying to say, but like if your friend is causing you stress because of their mental health symptoms, you have every right to step away from that. And you can love them from a distance, and that's completely fine. And then on your friend's side, like clearly she's an adult. Like she has to figure it out on her own. And you've done everything in your power, but at a certain self-protection level, like you can cut yourself off and that's okay. And it doesn't mean that you're not supporting her, you know? And as someone who made the grand decision to just go off everything and see what happens, it's not good. It's I think people like thank God my fiance stuck by me, but like if people need to protect themselves and separate themselves from me just constantly being like I would have to respect that because that's your own personal decision.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people confuse support with agreeing with someone. So, in my opinion, support means that you love that person very much and that you are going to be there for them when they need you or make yourself available. Or even if, say, you're really, really busy or you're in a different state or a different country, you will still do everything in your power to let them know that you are there and that you care about them and you want them to succeed in life. And an analogy for me is like, say, um, one of my friends is going through a very hard time with her boyfriend, and I don't like this boyfriend. And personally, I think that they should break up. Okay. But I'm not going to, I've already addressed this with her. I'm not going to constantly tell her, break up with him, break up with him, break up with him, break up with him. Right. Because that's not supportive. I have given my opinion
Mhm.
and she can do with it what she will. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to continue to be her friend. Now, if her boyfriend was abusing me as well, every time I enter the room, that would be a different matter, right? Because we got to protect
Mhm.
ourselves. But if I'm not being, affected by this boyfriend, and she is, I'm still going to love her and say, hey, whatever decision you make, that's the decision that you have to live with. I don't have to live with that decision. That doesn't really affect me. What does affect me is how you're treating me. And this friend, I still love and care for them very, very much. But if they're purposefully excluding me out of their lives for one reason or another, or admitting that they're excluding me, they don't get to have the role of maid of honor.
Yeah.
Sorry. That role is
Yeah.
going to someone else who is emotionally available for me and wants to participate in planning and being a part of the occasion.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
yeah,
if
absolutely. Absolutely.
if someone has made a commitment with me, which like we have several times of her saying, oh, I'm going to come over at this time. And I have dropped all of my other plans and I wait for her for hours on end to show up and her never to show up and me to text her saying, hey, where are you? You coming anytime soon? You coming around? You coming around the mountain? And her being like, oh, no, I took a nap. Sorry. Can we reschedule? Like, no, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I can't reschedule because I have a life
Yep.
and I have other things to do. But you know, there's a difference between having a busy schedule and, giving someone your free time versus having a busy schedule and like making sure that you give time to your friend or free up your own time for your friend.
Yeah.
And bringing this back to like coping with mental illness, if you have a friend that's struggling with mental illness and you have tried everything in your power to help them out, but they are, refusing the help, it's okay to take a step back.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
okay. You, if you have done everything in your power and you feel, justified that you've done everything in your power to provide any support that you can and they're not accepting it, it's okay to let them go. I know it hurts. Oh, man, oh man, it hurts, but it's okay to let them go. Some common signs and symptoms, like really warning signs of mental health illnesses, are confused thinking, prolonged depression, sadness or irritability, feelings of extreme highs and lows, excessive fears, worries, and anxieties, social withdrawal, dramatic changes in eating or sleeping habits, strong feelings of anger, strange thoughts like delusions, seeing or hearing things that aren't really there, which are hallucinations, growing inability to cope with daily problems and activities, suicidal thoughts, and numerous unexplained physical ailments, along with using substances like alcohol, weed, and other like vapes to numb yourself. So those are some warning signs. And I think, everyone can relate to at least one or two of these warning signs of mental illness because, on average, everybody deals with some form of mental illness at one point in their life. Like depression is pretty common. Grief is really common because what is the one thing in life that everybody's going to experience? Death.
And taxes.
And taxes.
Death and taxes.
Death and taxes. Dude. They're like, oh, the economy has never been better. Where? Where? Where?
Where is right? Where is right? Crazy.
Anyway, enough of like taxes. Taxes stress me out.
I think my heart rate rose when I just said that. I'm so sorry.
Dude, we need to bring back like whatever it's like no taxation without representation because I do not feel represented in any political on any of it, period. I don't feel
Now that
represented.
I'm in DC, I'm like, well, why am I doing this? Like, we don't have anybody.
We don't, there's all old people. At the State of the Union, I was watching it with my grandmother, and I'm like, Mimi, my Mimi is from Jamaica. She's a mixed race woman.
Amazing.
And I'm like, Mimi, there's no one representing us. And she was like, oh, there's a lot of old people. I'm like, yeah, old people like you. And she started laughing. Like, there's no young people. There's no one. She's like, well, you gotta like, isn't it elected officials have to be 35? I'm like, no, Mimi, that's the president. Like, I don't see anyone that's representing me in there. It's all geriatric, old, dirt old people holding on to their power for dear life. That's what I see.
I know. I'm like, speaking of coping with mental illness, like, I have really tried to not watch the news. And I know, like, because I think, and this is kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier about, letting a friend go if they're not accepting your support or whatever. It's kind of like knowing when to draw your own personal boundaries to protect yourself and to give yourself grace for doing that. And I think I feel a lot of guilt not being super educated on world events. I do feel guilt about that, but I know like I have so much in my head already that I'm struggling to cope with. And with current world events, I it, I would be down really bad, you know? And so this might be controversial, but I think at a certain point you have to kind of do an inventory and say like, okay, like what can I handle? What can I not handle? And give yourself grace for that, you know? Because there's so much information coming in, but I just get all these news notifications because I was a journalism major too, so I like to kind of like be in the know. But now I'm like, I literally like have to take it, okay, like 1 minute at a time. I can't handle the bombardment of news constantly with
No.
everything horrible happening and horrific everywhere.
Yeah. And never
It's too
before in
much.
history are we able to access this much information like at once. And like mental health speaking, this is a crazy time.
No.
Stress is at an all-time high for everyone because, stress is a natural response to, things that are negative or could have a negative consequence. We need stress to be able to survive, to keep us alive. When we were in them caves hunting, gathering, doing the thing, and say a predator came up or oh my gosh, there's a rainstorm, there's a mudslide, I need that stress, I need that adrenaline to get me away from said,
Yes.
you know, horrible event. But now we're stressed out and we're not as active as, you know, our predecessors. We do not walk as much, you know, we do not run as much. And so our body, with being flooded with the constant amount of stress from the news, from social media, from our everyday lives, from other people's lives, it's just too much. And if we don't find adequate coping mechanisms for ourselves, we get overwhelmed and suicide rates get a lot
Yeah.
higher
Yeah.
because
I mean, yeah.
people can't cope. They don't want to exist. They're gonna not exist anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for those of you that are suffering from, you know, severe mental illness and you feel like suicide is the answer, I want to let you know it's not. It's most certainly it's not. And if you need any support, you can always reach out to us on our Discord. And also, you can talk to a crisis counselor anytime, day or night, 24/7. The crisis line is 988. It is the same in the US and in Canada. Um, I think you can always call 911 anywhere, like anywhere. It'll route you to, you know, a correct emergency number for wherever your location is. You can call 988 or 911 if you are in crisis. And you are worth the effort it takes to get better. You are worth it to overcome whatever you're struggling with. And, you know, physically speaking, genetically speaking, like there will never be another you out there. And that is such a gift. And yes, I know we go through it. Yes, I know life is very stressful, but it is in the long run worth living. And
Mm.
eventually, whatever situation that you're in, you'll change because the one constant in life is change.
Very well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard you talk earlier. You were like, growth is not linear, trauma is not linear, life is not linear. You know, my therapists have told me that time and time again that healing and growth are not linear. There are ups and downs. And I like to visualize my own healing journey as a roller coaster. So there are like the highs and the lows and then the loops. And sometimes I feel like I'm back to where I started, but I'm technically not. Like I have gone further on the path, but it just, you know, wanted to go back a little here, you know. Progress is, it's not linear. And so even though technically I'm not where I started, sometimes I feel like I am. Do you ever relate to that feeling?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially like having to go back on meds, you know. I think so. Yeah, and this is the tricky thing about psychiatric medication is because, you know, if all goes to plan, they will work and you will feel better, right? Um, but then you feel better and you're like, I don't need these anymore. I'm better. And then you stop taking them and then the loop continues, right? And so I kind of fell into that trap. And then I was really upset because psychiatric medications, you can't, like you said, like you can't, you're not supposed to at all stop them cold turkey. And when you start them, generally you titrate up, you know, you'll do 5 mgs and 10 mgs and 25, whatever, to get you to a good place. And even after that, it takes 4 to 6 weeks to work. And so I was really mad at myself that I put myself back this far and then I had to wait a month to really start experiencing the full benefits of the medication, you know. And it can be really really frustrating, but I just want to double down on what you were saying. I will preach this forever. Like no matter what situation you're in, like it is not permanent. And it is so hard to see it when you're in it. But when you're on the other side, you're like, oh yeah, I'm on the other side. Like I still will never forget. I was sitting on a bench on our like lawn at my school, and I had done poorly on an exam, and I called my fiance, who was my boyfriend at the time, and I was like, he was like, tell me things you like about yourself. And I was like, I'm kind. Like, like it took like but just because I failed an exam, like I literally forgot who I was. I was so in such this low place and it felt like it was never going to get better. And then a couple months later, I'm crushing it. I'm happy we're engaged. Like things have really turned around. And just to like know that even though 4 to 6 weeks for a certain medication can feel like a really long time, like you will get on the other side of that, and you will feel better. And even if it takes multiple trials, like there is help available and there is a flip side to this coin that you're on right now. And just like, even if all you do is just wait, until it happens, like just hunker down and wait, like you will feel better, you know? Um, and uh and then you'll feel better and yeah, you might circle back, but I like you're still going forward, right? So you can like I like the visual. You might kind of circle back upside down, but you're still in a better place than you were before, especially if you're in therapy and you're using your coping skills that they've given you, or if you choose to take the medication route, you're always going to be in a better spot than you were. So I just think I know it's
Yeah.
such a commonly said phrase, but it truly does get better. And like, it's not the end, whatever you're experiencing now, like there's so much more happiness and joy on the other side.
Dude, I have this saying for the podcast is transmuting pain into purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that? Does that resonate with your life?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like there were multiple students who were in a similar situation to me. And I just remember, like, after all this went on, I was like, I don't know if you're religious or not. I am religious. And I just said, like, I know God has me in this situation so that I can help someone else. Like, that's how I framed it in my head. I was like, I know I'm going through this right now so that I'm going to come across somebody who's going through this and I can be there to support them and show them that it does get better and there are resources and things to help. And come to find out, there's a couple students that had to retake classes and they came to me and I was like, I got you. This is how we're gonna study. You call me anytime. We're gonna get through this. And I was, giving them the same, it's just an exam. This has nothing to do with who you are as a human being. And yeah, so I think, my pain where I was crying so hard in the bathroom, people knocked on the door to see if I was okay. Like that, like really like physical pain I was feeling from just disappointment in myself, um, transmuting that into hopefully helping others not feel that way or have more of a perspective on things in this academic arena, I think is the way that I did that.
And perspective is really, really important. It's a very good coping tool is to look back on what you have accomplished. And for those of you listening, a little perspective, like coping strategy is what you could do is write down, okay, where am I right now? What am I struggling with? And then write down what I'm kicking ass with. So
Yeah.
for me, that could be like, okay, I'm struggling with moving, right? I'm struggling. But what I'm kicking ass with is I'm in a whole ass other new place that has so much more potential. There's so many possibilities for my growth. I'm getting more clients for voice lessons. I'm getting more clients for acting lessons. I'm selling my beaded jewelry. I am in such a better place than I was before. Yes, I am struggling with moving, but that's not a forever thing. Like eventually this place will be fully set up and it'll be great. It won't sound echoey, right? But right now, this is where I am, and I have accepted where I am. And then for the perspective, the next little step is what are my goals? Where do I want to be? And then taking time and you fold up that little envelope and you put it somewhere. And one day when you're cleaning, you find that envelope, say, and you open it and you read it. And it changes so much. I don't know how it does for me, but for me to go back and look at, oh my goodness, and acknowledge, okay, I felt like I was in the depths of despair with moving. I was so stressed out that I threw up, like threw up several times because I was just so stressed out. But I have moved. I'm here.
You're here?
You know, a couple things may have broken along the way, but I haven't broken my body. My body is okay. And I'm gonna make it. And it helps me. It really does help me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the best things that I started doing was victory lists, which is basically what you're talking about. Like I call them victory lists, but it's like because so again, like I don't think I have ADHD, but I definitely have symptoms of ADHD, but it could be caused by anxiety or depression, like again, that's where the line gets weird, but so definitely analysis paralysis if we've talked about that where it's like I have so much to do and then you just don't do anything and you just bed rot. So, and then every like when I would Google like what to do with analysis paralysis, a lot of the things would be like make a to-do list of small goals, but then my to-do list would go dunk 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 dunk, and then I'd have like 100 things on my to-do list, and then I'd get overwhelmed and I still wouldn't do anything. So I started doing victory lists. So it'd be like I brushed my teeth today. I took my meds today. Yeah, I went to work. Yeah, like, and you also get to see how much you actually do, you know? Because sometimes I would gaslight myself and be like, I was so lazy today. I only did this thing. And so I was like, no, write down everything you did today. Like, you did a lot. And that was so helpful for me, for my analysis paralysis. Because it can be debilitating. Like
Yeah.
you just are so overwhelmed with all these plates spinning that you're just like, I just need to dissociate, not do anything. It's just too much, you know?
I feel that 100%. And like to add on to that, my fiance, like the day we moved in, so like 2 days ago, he laid in our bed and he started to cry and he was like, I don't feel like I got anything done. I was like, honey, you just built our bed. You literally
Yeah.
just built our bed. That's insane. I personally couldn't do that. No, no, that's not my skill set. You did a lot today. You moved in a lot of things. Now it's my turn to start doing a lot of things and putting things where they go. Like that whole putting things where they go is really overwhelming for him. It's not
Yeah.
overwhelming for me. It's a lot to do, but it's not overwhelming. Like, I just need you to build things. I need you to build me little shelves so I can put my little crystals and my little rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything will be in its place because I literally have a giant, large. If you guys have ever been to Home Depot and you know those packing boxes, the extra large, heavy duty box, I have one of those full of crystals of various sizes.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Crystal tour.
I'll do a crystal
We start
tour. If
unpacking
you
them.
guys like want a crystal tour, I'll do a crystal tour. I'll send you one, Carleigh. But like for those of you that maybe want to see what my place looks like, I'll do a tour. I'll do it. I'll do a tour. I'll definitely do a tour of the podcast room once it's officially set up because I do some occasional podcast updates for those that watch on YouTube. But yeah, there's no one size fits all approach in healing, in coping, in anything. There have never been a one size fits all in like clothing. There's usually like a one size fits most. But even then, sometimes, it gets a little bunchy in weird places because just like how our bodies are different and beautiful, our minds are different and beautiful. So some coping strategies that may work for me may not work for you, and vice versa. But that doesn't mean that we should feel discouraged when something doesn't work for us. For me, I get really excited at the opportunity of trying something else. I don't know if you guys are like me, but I like to try everything. I like to learn everything. Like, how, I don't know if you know Trisha Paytas, but
Oh, I know. I know.
Queen Trisha wanted to try every single religion. And everybody was like, what is she doing? She's appropriating. No, she's trying to figure out which religion fits her, which religion she
Yep.
resonates with the most, you know? And
Yeah.
bro, she's educating herself. She was fully in it with every single thing. And I was so proud of her. Really, Trisha has been one of the best mental health success stories that I have ever
Yes.
seen that has been so fully documented.
Yeah, I agree. Because she's
She,
been super, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's just so um how she's been so open about her borderline personality disorder. And that was like one diagnosis that was thrown out for me too when I was younger. And the doctor literally said, "Don't Google it. You'll freak yourself out." And there is such a stigma associated specifically with borderline. And in between undergrad and grad school, I worked at a mental health doctor's office and I worked in a drug rehabilitation center. And it is stigmatized by everyone, you know? And so to have her be so open and document her experience, and even, when she was learning about all the different religions, like one of the symptoms of borderline is having difficulty with identity, and so she's really like showing us what it's like to have this diagnosis and go through and trying to find yourself, like who you are genuinely. And I think that's so valid. And she's open about her substance abuse issues. And it's just really, and she's so successful now with her podcast. I listen to it all the time. And it's just so like, and she has a daughter and Moses and
And a
just so
baby on the way.
baby Elvis. But yeah, just to watch like, and that's like another, again, like a callback, like to show how like you can be in the depths of whatever hell she was in, like your own individual hell, and like come back out, have one of the most successful podcasts I think on Spotify, she's ranked in the top, and have a family, and it's just like, oh yeah. Yeah, we stand her and her recovery and her openness and honesty about what she's going through, because bringing visibility to that disorder is incredibly important. Because yeah, like I was literally told to not Google it because the articles will freak you out.
Ugh,
So it's just like
dude.
that's what's out there. And that was, I think, in like 2015. So I think things might have gotten a bit better, but
Yeah. And
yeah.
for those of you, listening, I have 2 episodes on BPD. You guys want to check it out? I have an episode on BPD and relationships and
Hmm.
just generalized borderline personality disorder. If you guys want to check out those episodes, I'm gonna link them somewhere on the YouTube screen. Maybe they're over here. Who knows? Editing Grace will figure that out. But dude, I just thought of the song. I don't know if you've seen Zootopia from Disney.
Yes.
The Shakira song, Try Everything. She's like, I will like get knocked down and then get back up. I'm gonna look up the lyrics. Try everything, song Shakira.
Yes.
Shakira. So she's like, I keep falling down. I keep on hitting the ground. I always get up now. See what's next. Birds don't just fly, they fall down and get up. Nobody learns without getting it wrong. So that's another little song that's going to be put in a playlist of, hype music by
Hmm.
Grace. Not by Grace, but like curated by Grace. But that song slaps. But also the song like The Next Right Thing from Disney's Frozen 2. Have you seen that?
I have not. I will say I am not a movie gal, but only because I fall asleep every time. And my sweet, sweet fiance is a movie buff. And so I always fall asleep. But I have this, I don't know if it's a bad habit, but I just like rewatch the same comfort shows over and over and over and over again. So unfortunately, I have not seen Frozen 2, but please tell me more about it.
So, spoiler, if you guys want to click away, click like maybe 30 seconds ahead. Um, in Frozen 2, Anna, her sister Elsa, she thinks Elsa is dead because Olaf fucking evaporates and Olaf is alive because Elsa is alive. So Anna just got hit 1, 2, and she really depressed and she's in literally a pit, a cavern, and she's in despair. And her song, it's it's like what comes next? That's too much to think about. I just need to
Mm,
do the next right thing. That's
yeah.
the synopsis. She's like, I gotta get up and do the next right thing. Take a step, step again. It is all that I can to do the next right thing. That's another song that's gonna be put in the
Mhm.
playlist because when my dad had died, when he was in hospice and he died, my mother, before he died, my mother was like, "Oh, you should sing to him," which, yeah, I sang to him a lot. And I just started weeping, and
Mhm.
something in my brain clicked like, I need to play this song. And so I played it for him. I don't know if he could hear it. I don't know what was going on with him, but it really started to help me. So whenever I started to get, over time, it's been 2 years since he's died, but over time, the grief, it changes. It never really goes away. It just takes on a different part in your life. And that song has really helped me to continue to have more perspective on, yes, I am really, really sad, but I just need to do the next right thing and the next right thing after that. I don't need to look too far ahead. I just need to keep going and it's going to be
Mhm.
okay. And it's a song that allows me to sing it and just release and express and feel everything. And for me, crying is super, super healing. Oh, I just touched something. Crying is really super healing. If you guys have seen Inside Out, basically the whole synopsis of the movie is that you need to be able to feel every feeling. You can't just be happy all the time. You need to be able to feel that grief, that sadness. And sadness is important because until we feel sadness, we're not able to fully express what we're going through. And, these highs and lows makes us appreciate the highs a lot better.
Right. And I would say going off of that too, I definitely am afraid of being sad. And I think like truly afraid of being sad. And I think that's just because I have difficulties with emotion regulation and I've had that forever. Like I feel my emotions and they're too intense. That being said, when you receive treatment for mental illness, whether it's meds, whether it's therapy, whether it's both, the goal is to not the goal is to not take away every feeling but happiness. It's the goal is to have you feel emotion without having it overcome you and keep you from being able to do your activities of daily living, right? And you mentioned this earlier with worrying about things, how like evolutionarily we needed to have some level of worry about where food was coming from so we would prepare food for ourselves. And, at some level, anxiety can be adaptive, but then there's a moment where the anxiety becomes too much and we stop doing what we need for ourselves. And that's why it's important to learn how to cope with these feelings so that that wave of the emotion doesn't kind of take over and pull you under, right? So like we can be sad, we can be anxious, but how do we stop that wave from completely overtaking us? And those coping skills are what stop us from that. So whether it's music, which I totally use music, I can't sing a lick, but my lovely roommates will enjoy a rendition of some Broadway Babe playlist number in the shower. Definitely calling people for me. I should work out. I don't. I've read all the literature that supports physical activity for mental health. So that works for a lot of people. Apple Music has meditations that there's this one that just says I have time over and over and over again that I listen to in the shower. Like, and if you can imagine that your coping skill is not to take away any feeling of sadness, but just to help you kind of ride that wave of sadness, then I think you might have greater success in that. That's been my experience.
Yeah, and NAMI, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness, has some amazing resources. They're going to be linked in the description, but I want to read some strategies, something from the source that might help us
Yes.
out for those of you guys listening. But the first one is radical acceptance. Radical acceptance is completely and totally accepting something from the depths of your soul with your heart and your mind, according to Marsha Linehan, who is the creator of dialectical behavioral therapy. If you guys want to check out my video on dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, it'll be right here. But included in this definition is the idea that no matter what, you cannot change the situation. For example, imagine a tornado is coming your way. Obviously, you cannot do anything to stop that tornado, okay? You are not God. But what you can do is you can act. You can prepare yourself and you can keep yourself safe. If you sit around trying to will the tornado to stop and witchy it to stop, or pretend that there is no tornado, you are going to be in real trouble when it comes. And the same thing applies to mental illness. You cannot change the fact that you have mental illness. So anytime that you spend trying to get rid of it or pretend that it doesn't exist is only draining your valuable energy. So accept yourself, accept your condition, and then take the necessary steps to take care of yourself and show yourself compassion, love, and understanding because you deserve it. You really, really do. Another technique is called deep breathing. So, yeah, deep breathing is really an annoying cliche at this point, but it is a very good way to calm and relieve anxiety. A deep breathing technique that we're taught in singing. So if you guys everyone takes singing lessons from me, you can. I'm also put that link in the description, but it's called breathing in square. And what you do is for, say, a count of 4, you're inhaling for 4, you're holding that breath for 4, you're exhaling for 4, then you're holding for 4, then you're inhaling for 5, and you're holding for 5, and you're exhaling for 5, and you're holding for 5. And that really helps you do a reset. The gentle repetition sends a message to your brain that everything is okay, or it will be soon. And before long, your heart starts to slow its pace and you will begin to relax. And sometimes it's without even knowing it. Another one is opposite to emotion thinking. Okay.
Okay.
So, opposite to emotion thinking is how it sounds. You act the opposite way to how your emotions are telling you to act. Say that you're feeling upset and you have the urge to isolate. Opposite to emotion tells you that you need to go out and be around people. The opposite action of isolation. So when you feel anxious, combat that anxiety with something calming like meditation. When you feel manic, turn to something that stabilizes you. This technique is probably one of the hardest to put in play, but if you can manage it, the results are very incredible. So for me, say that I am feeling really, really stressed about all of the certain tasks that I have to get done. I write down the most important task, like what we had to do today. Me and my fiance had to do a lot of tasks today. And one of them was get groceries because we just moved. Okay. There's no food in the house. There's absolutely no food. And so we went to the Sam's Club and we're like, oh shit, we forgot the credit card at home. Okay. So my fiance went back to home. I was still at Sam's Club, still shopping, still making sure we got everything. He came back with the credit card. We realized, oh wait, our Sam's Club membership expired. That's not a problem. He went to the front desk. We got a new membership. We got all of our food and stuff. And then we put it in the cart and we're like, okay, instead of going out again, going back home, going back, let's get our other little tasks done. Okay, we need to go to Home Depot. It's okay if things defrost in the car. We have a freezer, things can refreeze. Let's go into the Home Depot. Let's go get the things that we need. And then it was like, oh, let me also return this other thing that I needed to return while we're still in town. We got all of those done. We came back to the house and on time for me to do this episode. And we did the tasks. If we were to say, oh, we have so much, all these tasks to do, it gets really overwhelming. But because we're like, okay, we need to go to the store. We need to get our groceries. We went to the store, we got our groceries, and we got everything that we needed to. And also when my fiance went home to go get the credit card, he also grabbed a lot of stuff that we needed to return. And so that solved another little trip. That really helped. So the last one, or no, two left. So one of the ones that really helps me is the 5 senses. And this is something that I tell a lot of people in the Discord server whenever you guys message me that you're feeling anxious. Something that really helps me is getting in tune with your 5 senses. So an effective way to utilize your physical space. So you tell me 5 things you can see. So for me, water bottle, flower, pliers, tweezers, whatever they're called, glass jar. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, my telephone. Okay, that's 5. Now I need the 4 things that you can feel. Okay, I can feel how warm my microphone is. I can also feel the hotness of my computer. I can feel the texture of my hair. I can feel the cool eyebrows that I have. Okay, those are 4 things that I can feel, right? All right, now the next thing is to smell. What can you smell? Well, my Gigi is on the ground. I can definitely smell Gigi because she needs a bath. I can smell my perfume that I put on this morning, and I can smell my deodorant that I put on this morning. If you're stinky, that's okay. And then another thing is to start to hear. What are the things that you can hear? And you can switch feel, smell, hear. You can switch all of them. Okay. It doesn't have to be 5 of this, this, and this, but you're utilizing the senses. Like, what are things that you can, taste? Another one. Like, are you chewing gum? Can you taste what your mouth tastes like right now? Do you need to go brush your teeth? These are things that can get you into your body and out of your mind. And it really does help. And then the last one is mental reframing. So, mental reframing involves taking an emotion or stressor and thinking about it in a different way. So, take, for example, you're stuck in traffic. If you're in Texas, traffic is a 24/7 thing all the time. Damn it, I hate to be in Texas, but it's okay. If you are stuck in traffic, you can think to myself or yourself, myself, LOL. You can think to yourself, my God, life is horrible. I'm so mad that freaking idiot crashed into that beanpole right there. How dare they? Or you can reframe that thought, which might look like, okay, traffic is bad. That dude was an idiot. I'm so glad that he's fine, but I'm still going to get where I'm going. Okay. There are professionals on the road. There are police, there are fire, there are EMS. There are people that are doing their job as quickly and as effectively as they possibly can to rectify the situation. And I'm going to get where I'm going to go. So in the meantime, I'm going to listen to the Trauma Dump podcast and listen to Grace being a weirdo. and feel the feels with Grace for a little while, pass the time. Or I can listen to the playlist that Grace has made for me of, you know, the emotional songs that really help Grace, that really slap. Or I can, you know, check out Carleigh on TikTok and look at her amazing TikToks. Just scroll and have a good time. These are things that you can pass the time with. Perfecting this technique can legitimately change your perspective in tough situations. But as you might imagine, the skill takes time and takes practice. And it's really important. What do you think, Carleigh? What do you think about these skills?
Oh, yeah. I mean, reframing is pretty much how I got through all of this, and just really kind of sitting back and be like, okay, like in the context of an exam, like in the world, does this matter? And when my fiance was like, what do you like about like you, Carleigh? Like, because that exam is not who you are, you know? Um, or yeah, I think reframing has been one of the best things for me. But I do want to emphasize what you said, which is so important, that it takes practice. It is a skill. And I remember like for my skin picking, so my therapist was trying to give me some alternative coping skills. And one of them was I would tell myself, you can pick your skin in 10 minutes. So you give because you have to ride out that urge of, I want to do what I want to do. She's like, okay, you can do it, but in 10 minutes. Generally, after that, it will pass. And she goes, it will not work the first time, most likely. And you might not feel good, you know, after using she's like, yeah, like if you make it the 10 minutes and you still end up picking your skin, that's okay. If you wait the 10 minutes, you don't do it, but you feel like shit because you still want to do it, that's okay. You're overriding this internal drive that you have been reinforcing multiple times a day for almost your entire life. Like me telling you to introduce this new coping skill is not going to cure this immediately. Like it's like working out. It's a muscle that you have to strengthen. And I think, like, I remember when, meditation started getting really big and everyone was like, meditate for anxiety, for depression, if you can't sleep. And then I would try it. I'm like, my brain is racing and this sucks. And like, I can't get there in my brain. But it's like, but when I realized, like, no, it's a meditation practice. Like you have to practice this, and just not setting up the expectation that it's going to cure you the first time you do it. I think was super, super helpful for me. So I'm really glad you said that.
How are you feeling right now?
So good. So
Yeah,
good.
you're feeling
Yeah.
good. How
Yeah.
can how can I
Oh,
support you going forward?
oh, just being you, keep spreading the good word, and and I really think too, just having people share their experiences is invaluable for everyone, because so many like I think we talked about this at the very beginning, we can feel like our experiences are unique, and in a lot of ways they are, but in a lot of ways they aren't. And so when you hear someone speaking and it feels like they're telling your story, whether it's all of it or parts of it, it can really help that alone feeling and help that, again, back to another thing we talked about, that it does get better, and someone has walked a similar path to me and they made it out, and that means I will too. Um, and so I'm just so thankful for what you do and for having me on. And it's just, yeah, just keep letting people share their stories. And I know that every episode is going to help at least one person. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. I really, really appreciate it. Speaking directly to our listeners, what would be your message about healing from mental illness?
Yeah, I think just it's not linear and it takes time, but it is absolutely possible and you will feel better. You will. I can't give you a timeline or a method, but you will. And something that, so I'm in the sciences, right? And something that really gives me hope and purpose and pain into purpose is seeing how hard and how 24/7 all these amazing scientists are working every day to find even better ways to help us feel better. I'll always say what we have as far as mental health medications right now, we can do better. But every day I walk past people who are making sure that we can and we will do better. So, and knowing that there are like really hardworking, really cool, awesome people that are wanting to help you also that you don't even know that are trying to make your life better. Also, I just hope you know that I work with amazing people that are trying to find more treatments for mental health conditions. So it does get better. And every day we're working to make sure that that is a reality for everyone.
Oh, that makes me feel really happy because, from my own perspective, like there has to be more things out there. And I started signing up for medication trials myself because, diagnosed PTSD. So I started looking into, okay, are there medications for PTSD? And I started doing all these trials and these studies. And clinical trials are not fun. Let me just say, them taking my blood like every couple weeks was insane, but I got paid. So, and it also gave me that satisfaction of being like, I'm helping people. I'm getting paid to help people, but I might be actually helping people, even though it's randomized. I'm probably like, case study 230,000, who knows? But it could help somebody out there. And it takes a really long time for, medicines to get passed. So do with that with what you will, listeners. But do you, Carleigh, have any resources or recommendations that you'd like to share with us?
So you said NAMI, which is excellent. Um, and I'm trying to think, you have, I think pretty much everyone I would have said. Um, Definitely, I think CDC has some good kind of fact pages if you want to learn more about different mental health conditions or different treatments for it. Um, I think that's pretty much it, but definitely like, if you have access to BetterHelp, like I know you said that you have the 2 free weeks and you want to just get started with something, I think that's amazing. I would also highly recommend, this is kind of, I thought it was like a industry secret, but some people may already know, but if there's a college in your area, a lot of the times they have masters in counseling or masters in social work students that are getting clinical hours by doing therapy. And you can get it on a sliding scale. And like, I think one time I paid $25 per hour and it was the best therapist I've ever had. And it was an intern, so it's if budget, I'm very sympathetic to the tight budget as a grad student that literally just gets paid enough to survive. But that is an option too if you're finding that mental health care as far as therapy is not as accessible. If you look to see if there's a college in your area, a lot of the time they have interns that are very budget friendly. The one caveat is that they often have to record the sessions for their supervisors. So if that bugs you, that's one thing, but it didn't bug me. And I basically had two therapists and it was great. So that is a fun little tip if needed.
I think it is a very good tip. Thank you for sharing, because I didn't know anything about that, and now I'm going to be hitting up the Denton colleges and be like, "Hello, hi.
Yeah.
You wanna have a case study on Grace Taylor? Do you wanna have some notes? We might learn something together."
Yeah, it's really it's great, and they were like, "Are you okay if we record this? This has to be recorded." I was like, "I don't care," and then he would come in and be like, "Hey, my supervisor mentioned wanting me to say this," and I was like, "Okay, slay, like go off, King." Like it was actually a male therapist too, which I'd never seen a male therapist before, but it was great. So yeah, I think if, I know not everyone lives near colleges that have those programs, but if they do, I would definitely look into seeing if they do this, or it could even be free. So just, I would definitely look into that if seeing an actual licensed therapist in your area is out of budget. You can see one in training and definitely more budget friendly.
Well, thank you, Carleigh. Thank you so much for sharing with us. I really, really appreciate it.
It was so fun. Anytime, anytime.
Hell yeah. You guys go follow Carleigh on TikTok. It is
Yeah.
at brain.nerd. That's pretty simple to spell. You're not gonna be able to spell that wrong. Go follow her. Shout out. Give her a follow. Like start liking, spam liking all of her videos. I don't know. Do something.
And always feel free to reach out in my DMs if you have a specific question, and I'd be happy to direct you to any resources. Like you said, I'm not a licensed professional, but I do know a lot, and I can connect you to a lot of great resources if that are specific to your needs.
If you're watching us on YouTube, let's get into the memes of the week, carefully curated from the amazing members over on our Discord server. Meme time. Meme review! At the end of every episode, we spin. Oh, let's make sure I'm recording. Okay. At the end of every episode, we spin our wheel of emotions to learn a new feeling and how it correlates to trauma. Ooh, joyful, liberated, ecstatic. Dude, this morning, I don't know what it was, but I was feeling an abundance of gratitude and of joy. And I think I know what it is. I know I'm like, oh, I don't know what it is. I know what it is. I finally moved. We're finally closer to where Joey works. I work from home, but we're in a house now with a little backyard. And we have our 2 cats, our 2 dogs. There's a giant dog park that's nearby that I go to every morning with my dogs. And it's the little things that stack up one after another. I've been selling my jewelry at vendor events every weekend. And this past weekend, I've made the most that I've ever made at a vendor event. And of course, I spent it really quick. Well, not really spent it. I paid back, paid off some of my credit cards. But I felt like things were finally going to be okay. If you've been watching us for a while, or if you're just getting to meet me, hi. I've gone through a lot over the past 3-4 years. And finally, things are actually starting to turn around. And I feel great. I feel so great. I've made a new friend. Her name is Bailey. Shout out Bailey. Hi. And things are getting better. Things are looking up. I don't know. I feel great. I feel a lot more joyful. I feel joyful that I have this room, that I can talk about mental health with you guys. I feel joyful that more and more people are listening. Yeah, things are finally looking up, and that means a lot to me. And I could not have gotten here without you guys. And just a quick reminder before we part, this podcast seeks to forge a strong community. So please don't hesitate to join our Discord to share with others and get podcast updates. You know, some memes. Maybe add your memes. They might be selected for the memes of the week next week. I'm excited. I'm excited. There's so much more potential for this to grow, and I'm finally seeing it. You know, I did it kind of as a hobby, as a way of healing myself, and now, you know, I have, you know, good and bad days, but I feel overall so much better. Special thanks goes out to the Discord users. Thank you guys. Thanks. Your compassion has really helped me out a lot. And if you'd like to support our podcast, we have a Patreon. Different tiers can get you a bracelet that is a handmade bracelet made by me, Grace, or you can get a sticker like the one on my computer. The links are in the description. And we also have merch on Bonfire where you can get custom apparel designed by yours truly. That link is also in the description. And if you feel compelled to, please like, subscribe, and share the show. Remember, you are capable of a fulfilling life in spite of your circumstances and your trauma. May you rise again from the ashes and be filled with peace, hope, love, joy, and understanding. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Goodbye. Bye.